Hey folks, welcome to this House of Musicians live interviews. Today I'm here with Mr. Bazil Donovan. Hi Baz, how are you?
Good, Jay. How are you?
I'm doing good. I appreciate you sitting down with me for a little while and talking about your wonderful musical career here at your beautiful place. We're sitting in Baz's back. You live on the island over there? That's where the wife puts you when you're bad, on the island. I'm happy to be here and honored to be sitting with you. You got your guitar. I know you're going to play a couple of songs. Let's just start right from the beginning, how you were influenced by music.
Well, I grew up in a family with a couple of guitar players. My mother's brothers were all from Nova Scotia, from Cape Breton Island. And every Friday and Saturday night, well, when my mother moved to Toronto, they kind of followed us. And they ended up living with us. So she had, 5 brothers. And 3 of them were quite good at, singing and playing. So there was a kitchen party at my place almost every weekend at some point. I think that had a big influence on,
Of course.
I look and it's even getting all this attention at the parties. So I'm supposed to be sleeping, but it's kind of hard to sleep when there's like a raging party going on downstairs. So.
Did you have your head like poked around the corner?
Yeah,
or?
I'd sit on the stairway at first, and kind of lean, through the posts, and then, I'd make my way into one of the other rooms where nobody would bother noticing me. They all get kind of tipsy at that time, and I would watch them sing songs, and I really enjoyed the Johnny Cash songs. I remember the first song I really loved was "Don't Take Your Guns to Town," right? Because my uncle used to sing that song, and I'd always say, "Man, play that one for me, play it." So he said, like from a young age, I was like, kind of struck by it.
Absolutely. No, that's wonderful. Same with me. Grew up with country music. My parents the same thing, so that was a big influence as well. So when did you get your first instrument, and what was it?
Well, there was always a guitar around the house, right? But, when I was young, they were like, "Don't touch that," like, "Leave that alone now." But then, after I got to a certain age, my uncle, he taught me how to play. And I was off to the races after that.
The old blues starting off with the
Hey,
blues.
look, I can do something.
And I see you're picking the guitar like you're using your bass with the fingers, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, it was probably, I was probably about 9 and 10 when I got back then, right? And then, from there, I started to play like the songs that they were learning, like, 10 years ago, on a cold, dark night, someone was killed beneath the town hall light. There were few at the scene, but they all agreed that the ran and who ran looked a lot like me. So I'd been 3 chords,
Long black veil.
Yeah,
Yep.
I play long black veil. It's funny to sing, singing songs that, are meant for adults, Like I remember, my dad other than country music, and, I remember learning House of the Rising Sun, and then my father kind of go to my mother. He's singing a song about a whorehouse.
Okay.
And I'm like 12, right? And it's like, there's a house in New Orleans.
Sure.
You know how when you're a kid, you don't know you're singing a song about someone who's sleeping with someone else's wife and murders,
Right. But those are all the basic
But they're the
songs.
songs that you get to know as a kid. You remember the words, you memorize them, but you don't really take, too much weight on what they actually mean.
Of course not.
You don't stop and think about the story.
No.
So I would just sing them. I guess it was kind of funny. I'd get them laughing, but I was just going by memory.
Yep.
Those were the earliest things. And then, my my cousin Donnie, who was
Okay, you're not.
the son
Yeah, you're not watching
of
me.
one of my uncles, he could play as well. He was younger than I was, so he taught me Stephen Stillwater's Dad Moon Rising.
Sure.
And that was off to the when I was off to the races on that one. So it was like song by song. I learned to play guitar, and I met a guy who was really good. He taught me to play the bass.
That's my wife with this call. She said they're having trouble hearing on there.
Jimi Hendrix, note for note. He was like, we had a bass player. We'd be a better band. We had a little band.
Oh, you can't really do anything about it.
And we couldn't find anybody that suited us. We didn't have anything to offer. We were just a bunch of kids who were trying to make us sound like a real band. And once I started playing bass, we started to sound more like a real band. So that was how I ended up on the road. And then when I met my wife, my first wife, she was a country singer, and she was quite good. She was working, I think she was 16 and 17, she was singing in bars. So my first gig was I went to the Canada House Tavern in Toronto to watch her sing on a Wednesday night. She was guesting with the band. She was going to do like 4 or 5 songs. She sang me and Bobby McGee, like the Janis Joplin version, and they all loved her. So she could sing like Kitty Wells and all the standard country stuff.
Sure.
So I went to see her, and at the end of the night, the bass player was an ambulance driver, and he got a beep on his phone saying, "Hey, you got to work tonight," right? So he had to leave. So someone in the band just kind of go, "Well, we hear you're a bass player. Get up there." Right? So then I didn't know what to do. I was playing in prog rock band at the time, trying to learn the Epps and Genesis covers. And next thing I know, I was on the stage, and they were, going, "Okay, Folsom Prison Blues." I was out there. I was repeating the verse. Turned down for, not sure. And as soon as they started playing, I kind of got off. I was like, "Oh yeah."
Absolutely. Yep. The bass lines.
Coming, right?
Did you go to school at all, or to play music, or?
Well, I studied a bit in school. I was in the school band. I played bassoon and I played upright bass in high school. And I took private lessons a little bit. I took from a really nice teacher who he was a jazz player. He played at the CN Tower in the jazz band that was on the top of the CN Tower.
Wow.
He was really good. I took 8 lessons from him, and he taught me enough in those 8 lessons to really, my playing went from there to there.
Amazing.
Like quickly.
Sure.
And that was when I was like around 20. Yeah, that happened. Before that, it was just all learning by ear, and learning with friends, and stealing things from other people. Rick Emmett from Triumph.
Yep.
He lived in my neighborhood, and he went to my high school, and he was 2 years older than me. And he studied classical as a child, right? Classical guitar. So he had one of these, and he would, when we would have those things where, at school where you have talent day or whatever, and everyone would do things to show what they could do. Well, he would, pull out the guitar and play all these original songs that he had, and he was so good that, I'd go down, "Hey, show me that Blackbird song."
Beautiful.
He showed me that, right? And that was one of the first ones that I learned to study the fingerprint. And, I pick up from all these different people who were just coming into my world and playing guitar, and they'd say, "Oh, let me see the guitar," and they're playing, and I go, "Show me that."
Of course.
And I studied advanced theory. In high school, they offered, in grade 12, they offered a class for advanced theory. But you had to come early, so I'd go at 8 in the morning, and I'd take the hour advanced theory class twice a week. And by the time I finished that, I wrote my grade 2 test for theory. And I don't think I passed it, but I wrote it anyway. You know, to get the grade 2 test, you have to be able to write in not only tenor class and alto class, you know, I mean, or treble and bass class, but you have to be able to write for viola in like alto class. You know what I mean? Like,
Sounds tough.
Yeah, it was. But what I learned out of that, out of trying to do all of that, I learned enough theory that I was never going to have to, because it only goes. Theory is like grade 2. And that's it. There's no grade 3.
Wow.
Then you study harmony after that.
Oh, okay.
So then people would get into Gordon Belmont's Book of Harmony, and that was more complicated. And I did some of that later on, but you know, that was my theory. I got that down, and then you know I started playing in country. You know, after I played that one country gig, I started getting calls from those people saying, "Are you working next week? Do you want to?" I was still in high school, right? And I say, "Well, you know, how much?" And they say, "Well, we're paying you $150 a week." All right, at that time, you know, 1972, that's pretty good money.
Sure was.
So I go, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it." Okay, we're playing at the Winchester Tavern, Parliament Street. You know, one of the roughest joints in
Of course.
town, right?
Yep.
But, you know, they take care of me. You know, there's always, you know, someone in the room, an adult in the band who was like, "Don't worry, if anyone bothers you, we'll protect you."
That's good.
So that's where I kind of, you know, that's where I got my country education.
Good for you. Now, I want to talk a bit about. I want you to do a song first, because I'm amazed how good you can play the guitar. I know you play bass, but you're also a wonderful guitar player. So why don't you play a song for the folks out there, and then I want to talk about a favorite story of mine of yours, how you were introduced or answered an ad for Blue Rodeo, because I know that you've been with them for many years, and you've done 15 studio albums with Blue Rodeo, and numerous other things as well. So why don't you play us a song, and then we'll touch on that for the folks out there.
Well, this is a Randy Travis song.
Randy Travis.
Digging Up Bones.
Perfect.
Tonight I took your picture out from our dresser drawer, put it on the table, talked to it till 4, read some old love letters right up till the break of dawn. Tonight I'm sitting alone digging up bones. I went to the jewelry and I found our wedding ring, put mine on my finger, and I gave yours a fling. Across this lonely bedroom of our recent broken home, tonight I'm sitting alone, digging up bones. I'm digging up bones, I'm digging up bones, exhuming things better left alone. I'm resurrecting memories of a love that's dead and gone. Tonight I'm sitting alone, digging up bones. I went to the closet and I found some things in there, like that pretty negligee that I bought you to wear. And I recall how good you looked each time you had it on. Tonight I'm sitting alone, digging up bones. I'm digging up bones, I'm digging up bones, exhuming things better left alone. I'm resurrecting memories of a love that's dead and gone. Tonight I'm sitting alone, digging up bones. I'm digging up bones, I'm digging up bones, exhuming things better left alone. I'm resurrecting memories of a love that's dead and gone. Tonight I'm sitting digging up bones. Tonight I'm sitting alone, digging up bones.
Hey! Awesome, Baz. a country, you grew up on country music mostly, I would think, until a certain age, and then you got introduced to rock, did you? Or?
Well, I always straddled both worlds, kind of. Like, I really loved the Beatles. And they came along when I was a child. Right?
Yep.
So I was like in '64 when they played on Ed Sullivan. I was 9. So I loved them all the way through. Never stopped loving them. Country music was at home for me at the time, and out in the world, you know, rock music was the thing. You know, I loved the Byrds. I loved all of those British invasion bands like the Kinks and everyone who came along.
Sure.
But it was not cool. I remember going down to Sam the Record Man one time, and my dad said, "Oh, you're going down to Sam's?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, there's a record. I want you to pick me up." And I was going to get Jimi Hendrix's "Are You Experienced?"
Awesome.
Which I did, and my dad wanted me to pick up Johnny Cash live at San Quentin.
Nice.
And I have to admit that when I got home and there was nobody around in the daytime, I played Johnny Cash at San Quentin more than I would play Jimi Hendrix.
Awesome.
Right? Even though I loved the Jimi Hendrix records, but I would not dare tell any of my friends that I was listening. It wasn't until years later when I found out that Johnny Cash could be considered cool too by some people. Because I remember having some friends in rock bands, and I'm a big Johnny Cash fan too. I go, really? Like, I was almost afraid to tell people, But
me too. I know exactly what you're saying. It's amazing how many artists that I've interviewed over the last couple of months that their main band that when they first got heavily into music was the Beatles.
Yeah.
Like so many artists.
Yeah.
So
that was that was the thing that struck me right away, was just how great they were, and how they progressed with the times. Like if you looked at the time period from '64 to '70, they did all their stuff in that. And they went from She Loves You, Yeah, Yeah, Yeah.
The 50s pop stuff to
Sgt. Pepper and on to Abbey Road.
to the heavy stuff.
Yeah, so that was to be like them was just awesome, right?
Sure.
But, by the time I finished high school, I had a child when I was young. And I had a wife and a child at 19.
Yep.
So work started to come my way. It was like, do you want to go to a factory and work, or do you want to play music and work, right? And if you wanted to play music and work, you're going to play country music. Because if you went to a rock band, you were going to make the same kind of money you'd make in a country band, but most of the money would go to PA and lights and the guy moving it. And, I'd be on the road with country bands where I was making a couple $100 a week, and down the road there was a bar with a rock band in it, and I'd end up getting to know them and talking to them, and they'd be going like, yeah, we're making $50 each,
Yep.
It's all going to the PA and the sound guy.
Wow.
So, that was, I couldn't do that.
Right.
I remember actually meeting Larry Gowan back then, and that was the thing. He was doing a Billy Joel and an Elton John thing, right? Like he was doing half of the night. He was playing Holiday Inn, and he was making pretty good money doing it, I guess. But he was really trying to break out and do his own thing.
Sure.
But even he said, it's like it's so hard to be an original band and make money unless you get a big hit record and everybody knows you, and then you can go out and tour.
Of course.
Play big places. Up until that point, I remember seeing one of his first bands, Rheingold, and they were so good, those guys. They did a cover of Bohemian Rhapsody that sounded like the record, And
Amazing.
they were playing at the downtown in Owen Sound.
Well, Larry
Gowan.
Gowan. Sure. Larry Gowan's quite a treasure. He's got a great voice.
Oh,
and
he's amazing.
He's amazing.
Yeah. Back then he was amazing. I remember seeing him at the Holiday Inn doing this half of the set was Billy Joel and half of the set was Elton John. And holy stuff. Even the way he did that was like, wow, And then a couple of years later, I run into him, and I'm playing at the Queen's Hotel in a country band in Owen Sound, and I look on the sign across the road at the downtown, and it's Rheingold. So so I go over in between sets and see them.
Yep.
I'm just blown away at how much these guys have put into it. And there's about 20 people in the room, you know, not really paying attention. You know.
Sure.
So it was really hard to be in a rock band back then.
Right.
You know? It was very difficult. But then I got caught in the trap of playing the dingy bars for many years, you know, like back and forth across Green Street to the Gladstone, to the Edgewaters, to the Edwin Hotel, and the Broadview, and all of that. And then I thought to myself, I got to do something else. I got to get out of this rat race that I'm in, you know. And I answered an ad in Now magazine, you know, that said if you've dropped acid 20 times and lost a couple of years to booze and looking good or something like that, and you played bass or drums, call Jim or Gray, right? And then they had 2 numbers. So I called. I didn't even call, actually. It was one of my friends called them, and he was a drummer, and he wanted to do something else. So he was like, hey, I called that ad. You should call them. It's your kind of music, you know. I was like, yeah, but I'm kind of busy right now, you know. So he picked up the phone and dialed the number and handed me the phone.
Wow.
And I talked to Rena, Jim's wife, and she was kind of like, call the other number.
Right.
You know?
He wasn't interested in
She really didn't want to talk.
So who was the fella that called for you?
Greg ended up calling me.
No, somebody get.
Oh, my friend Wayne.
Wayne.
Sporty, yeah.
Okay, yep.
Yes, he was a drummer. He was my best friend since grade 3. We hung out together all the time. We played in country bands together. And he was of the same mind. He was like, I don't want to continue, you know, we were at that age where it was like, we wanted at that point to play some rock music. By this time I had divorced, right? And I was like, well, I don't have to work 6 nights a week in a country band anymore. You know, if I have a couple of weeks off, or I can take the time to get in a band that I really enjoy playing with. And,
Right.
And maybe something will come of it, you know.
So, of course, we're talking about Blue Rodeo right now. Greg and Jim Cuddy and Greg Keeler, you answered an ad in a magazine that said if you've dropped acid or what was it again?
Greg just wanted to kind of get a guy who'd been around the block.
But what a cool ad.
Yeah. You know, like it was so funny to read it. I remember laughing my head off. You've dropped acid at least 20 times. You lost a couple of years to looking good and booze.
Yep.
And you can still keep time. Call Jim or Greg.
Still keep time.
And play bass or drums. Call Jim or Greg.
So, Greg called you back.
Greg was the one who called me. I left my number with Rena. She was reluctant to take it, but I said, look, if they want to call me, they can call me. You know? She goes, all right, hang on. And she got a pen and wrote my name, scribbled my name down on a page. Well, a few days later, they had found a drummer, right? And now I had been in this band, The Sharks, with David Baxter and Cleve Anderson for 3 years before that. And,
Yep.
And we had done fairly well. We recorded an album that never got released, but we were kind of one of the hot bands in town. We opened for bands like Devo.
Nice.
You know, we opened for Split Ends when they played.
Cool.
We opened for XTC. It was a new wave period, right? And
Yep.
we had Gary Pop was our manager, and he kind of positioned us to get a record deal, you know. And so things were looking good, and then the band broke up.
Wow.
So Cleve was the drummer, Cleve Anderson. So the next time that they phoned me, I guess when they realized they were out having a beer at the Bamboo Club in Toronto, and they were talking about drummers, talking about bass players. Who can we get? By this time, they had already gotten Cleve in the band. And they said to Cleve, what about the guy who played in the Sharks with you? What's he doing? And Cleve said, oh, Bazil, I haven't talked to him in a while. And Jim goes, wait a minute. I think he called the ad. And he pulled out a piece of paper of the list of all the people who called the ad. And my name was on it.
Wow.
So Greg just took the paper off and went to the payphone and called me and said, you Bazil? I said, yeah. I said, well, hey, it's Greg from the Hi-Fi's. Remember me? Because the Hi-Fi's had opened for the Sharks, right? I said, oh yeah, I remember you guys. And he said, hey, we got Cleve on drums with us. Are you interested? I said, yeah. You know? I said, okay, well, this is a Parkdale number, right? I'll come and pick you up tomorrow. What's your address?
Cool.
Gave my address. Came down the next day, picked me up. We had a little rehearsal. And the 4 of us started the band right there.
Amazing.
Right? There was no audition or anything. It was just like, came in, we started playing. We ran over some songs. Like, I think Rose-Colored Glasses was the first song.
Beautiful song. So this is long before, or a little bit before, you guys ever recorded an album.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is like a year and a half before.
You've done a lot of bar stuff with Blue Rodeo before you guys recorded an album.
Yeah, before, well, we went around town trying to get gigs. So we'd all go to separate bars, but we ended up all going to the same ones eventually. I remember getting to the Horseshoe and X-Ray McRae going like, "You're the third guy in Blue Rodeo in here tonight, trying to talk us into hiring you guys."
Wow.
I said, "Well, then you should, right?" You know, and he was like, "Well, yeah, we'll see what we got for you. Don't worry, right?" But luckily, the bartender was this guy Keith Whitaker, who had a band called the Demics, and he was somehow he believed in us, right? He hadn't even really heard us yet, but he knew us all individually enough. But he kept going, "You should hire those guys. They're great. They're great." You know?
Right. Really vouching for you.
So they gave us, you know, a Wednesday night or something. And we had, you know, the first gig actually that we got was the Rivoli. And we played the Rivoli on a Friday night. I don't know how we got a Friday night. Someone must have canceled. And it was our first gig and it was packed.
And there was 4 of you at this time.
No, there was, just before we, you know, like the week before our first gig, Greg says to me when I'm leaving, he goes, "Do you like keyboards?" I said, "Yeah, I love keyboards." He goes, "Maybe I'll get one." I thought he was going to get a keyboard and he was going to play it, right? The next day he comes in with this guy, Bobby Wiseman, and he says, "This is my friend Bobby. He's going to play some organ with us." Oh, okay. And Bobby was in the band too.
Amazing.
And we rehearsed for another week or two, and Bobby learned all the songs, and then we had our first gig at the Rivoli. And I guess because they had just come back from New York City, where they lived for 3 years. And word had kind of gotten out that it was the Sharks rhythm section with these guys from they were the Hi-Fis before that. So enough people, they had enough friends in that when we got to the Rivoli that night to play, it was sold out. We couldn't believe it.
That's amazing.
Our first gig and we sold out.
Wow.
But then, you know,
Word was on the street.
yeah, and people started to come to see us. We started playing the Horseshoe on like quiet nights. You know, they'd say, "Well, we'll give you a Wednesday night," and we do really well. And they go, "Oh, well, these guys did way better than we thought." So
Were you playing many originals at that time?
we had about half originals.
Nice.
And half, you know, we do like covers like Galveston.
Yep.
Only we kind of Springsteen it up a bit.
Okay.
Like Galveston, oh Galveston, I can see your secrets cracking. Kind of like that.
Yep,
you know.
rocking it up.
Yeah. We do Kinks, These Are the Days, Bob Dylan, Queen Jane. No, we just picked a bunch of covers that we liked.
Sure.
Because we did 3 sets. That's the one thing that we were popular for was when we started out. You know, so many bands would try to put on this concert.
Right.
Like, yeah, we're here. You know, we get an opening act, and we're going to do 1 set, and it's going to be a big deal. We didn't do that. We just said we're just going to show up and play,
Sure.
and we're going to do 3 sets. So, you know, if you want to come. You can come and stay for the whole evening, or you can come and catch a set and leave, right? Well, we started selling out because people would go, "God, it's fun," and they do 3 sets, and you know, between sets we'd be out talking to everybody, right? So we were kind of like a bar band, but we had really good songs with original material.
So Jim and Greg were writing songs
Oh yeah,
for your originals at that
they
time.
had tons of songs by that time. But
Great.
We didn't have to do covers. The only reason we did covers was because we wanted to let people hear us do something that, you know,
They're familiar with.
yeah, that they, I recognize that song, you know.
Sure.
So, you know, before long we had people kind of wanting, you know, like we got a manager, it just kind of, we didn't even think anything was going to happen, right? We thought like, oh, we got some gigs, great, you know. We didn't think we were going to get a record deal or anything. That was, you know, we were all at the point where we'd given up on that kind of stuff because it just didn't seem like it was in the cards. We didn't dress up on gigs. You know, we showed up in, you know, like in street clothes.
Sure.
And at that time, everyone had spiky hair, and you know, they were like all get satin clothes on and keyboards on racks and everything. And you know, we were nothing like that.
Amazing.
Right? But that was at that time where people were kind of set up with that kind of, synthesizer sound, right? And here this guy's playing guitars.
And what year would that be, Baz? Around what year would that be?
Well, we started in '84, so this would be all through '85.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
REM was just, they were the other band that people would go, yeah, you guys are doing what REM's doing. They were just a flannel shirt band that plays, has guitars, and they didn't really, go with the synthesizers either, right?
Sure.
So that was who we got lumped in with. And there were a few other bands that came around, like when Los Lobos came to town, we got to open for them, right?
Cool.
They didn't want to put, you get this kind of Mexicali band coming in. You don't want to put a synthesizer band on the opening spot. So Jerry Top called us and said, "You guys want to open for Los Lobos?" And we were like, "Yeah." Concert hall? Of course.
Wow.
So that was our first big show.
Well, I know you're a great guitar player, so why don't you play another song for us?
Okay. Well, I'm praying for rain in California, so the grapes can grow, they can make more wine. But I'm sitting in a honky-tonk in Chicago, with a broken heart and a woman on my mind. I'm actually a man behind the bar with a jukebox, 'cause the music takes me back to Tennessee. When they ask, who's that fool in the corner crying, I say, it's little old wine drinker me. Well, I just got into town this week from Nashville. My baby left me on the Florida train. I thought I'd get a job just to ease the suffering, but in Chicago a broken heart still feels the same. I'm not a man behind the bar with a jukebox, 'cause the music takes me back to Tennessee. When they ask, who's that fool in the corner crying, I say, it's little old wine drinker me. When they ask, who's that fool in the corner crying, I say, it's little old wine drinker me.
Yeah. Well done,
Funny
guys.
term, Max the man. I sang that lyric in Stars for Years. Max the man. I didn't know what it meant, really. And I found out that there used to be a way that you would get the attention of the bartender. You would take a match and you would fold it over and you'd flick it and you'd get his attention,
Amazing.
right?
Yeah.
Hey, come over here. Or, so he'd match the man to the jukebox, like sitting in the bar drinking alone, match the man, and the guy turns on the jukebox so you can hear some sad country songs.
That's amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about now. I know you have a story about a gentleman who was persistent on getting you a deal, or I think he wanted to be your manager at first, and he didn't want to be paid, but he said,
Yes, John Caton
John Caton.
was our manager in the early days.
I love this story.
But John had we started playing the horseshoe on the Wednesday night thing, right? They said, we'll give you a Wednesday night. And we were like, okay. So John Caton was managing a band called the Arrows that were quite popular. They had just finished a tour of Europe with opening for Krista Berg. And there was like Dean McTaggart, who ended up writing songs for Celine Dion. And these guys were all really solid, pro musicians at the time.
Sure.
But somehow that band just couldn't get off the ground. They couldn't. They recorded some albums for major labels, but they didn't get the chart action they wanted to. And John had been managing them, and his wife was kind of going like, okay, look, it's over with those guys. Finally, they broke up, and his wife said to him, look, you know, you've got a good career selling real estate, because he was doing like big industrial real estate deals and making lots of money doing it.
Nice.
But his passion was in managing bands. So he was, you know, saying, okay, I'm going to get out of business. You're right. It's, you know, it's been, you know, too stressful on me. I'm going to give it up. Now, by this time they had been renting him a room to do his business out of in the basement of the Horseshoe. So one night he said to his wife, I'm going down tonight and I'm cleaning out my desk and I'm going to tell them I don't need the room anymore. It's over for me. You know, and I'll be back, you know, probably around 11 o'clock. You know, I'm going to talk to X-Ray for a while, because X-Ray, who was on the Horseshoe, would be there, and they were buddies. So he came to the Horseshoe and he was leaving, and he stopped at the top of the stairs as he was coming out, and we were playing, right? And he watched us for maybe half hour, and he was kind of like, these guys are pretty good, you know? Maybe I can help them out, you know? And he got
So
the bug, right?
He found a new venture.
So he went home, yeah, and he said, when he got home, he said he walked in the door and he said to his wife, honey, I saw this band tonight. And she just went, oh no. Because she knew, you know, that he wasn't giving it up.
Giving it up.
Yeah. And so he came to us and said, I want to manage you. And we kind of laughed at him. There's nothing to manage, you know, like we don't have, you know, what are you going to take? You know, we made $400 last night.
Right. And who's in the band at this time? I know we're talking about Blue Rodeo.
Us, yeah.
Okay.
It's Jim and Greg, myself, and Cleve, and
Yep.
Bobby Wiseman.
Yep.
And we're just like kind of happy to have some gigs on weekends, you know, at the time. Like, hey, we made $1,000. We'll split it up, 200 each,
Sure.
you know, and be out of here, right? So our idea of giving up some of it to a manager was like, no, we didn't want to, you know, because
Of course not.
you know, generally they'd say they were going to do things and nothing would happen, right? So we didn't really think it was that important. And he kind of came to us and said, I don't want any money. I don't want your nickels and dimes, right? He said, I want to manage you. I'll get you a record deal within 1 year, international, or else, you know, we're done, right? You can just tell me to bug off, right? And we went, yeah, you know, everyone talked about it, said, all right, let him do it. You know, I guess there's no harm if he doesn't want any money.
Right.
He can do whatever he wants. And then he went to work, you know, and then the next day he showed up and he goes, this is my friend Terry Brown, right? Terry Brown produced 10 Rush albums, and
Wow.
he just had a big hit with this band Cutting Crew. I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight. And he's going to do some demos for you. And we're like, really?
Wow.
This guy's coming to
That's
demo with us,
amazing.
right? So we went into, he said, and Terry said, look, because of my status, people have been offering me free studio time to come and check out their studios. So I'll take you in to check out their studios and make some demos. So we went to Fort Erie, we recorded one. We went to Elora, we recorded another studio. You know, he found some places. We went to Comfort and did some stuff. And we had, you know, four or five song demo by that time. It was sounding pretty good with our original thing. And John Caton started shopping it. Well, at the same time, Jim Cuddy was working as a props guy at McWater's Van Link, and they were doing commercials, right? So he would be, all day, his job was like, you know, building a gas station across the road from another gas station so that they could shoot, you know, the competitor or something like that. Or all sorts of things, like he did those bacon commercials, you know, he said, you've got to get just the 3 right pieces of bacon, and it takes you like all day, right? Or those cheese, please, you know, those kids.
$10,000 later,
do all of that
three
stuff.
pieces of bacon.
Yeah. So because he'd come in sometimes, he goes, I've been eating bacon all day, man. Like, anyway, so the girl who owned the company, the woman who owned the company, Rosanna McWaters, was having her 40th birthday party, and we agreed to play her 40th birthday party. So we went down, and we just thought it was going to be like, hey, free booze and food and have a fun night in this warehouse. At the end of the night, she said, I want to do a video for you guys, right? And it's going to be free. It
Wow.
won't cost you anything. Just thank you. Right?
Amazing.
So we shot our first video of one of the songs on the demos. And John Caton was he was a type of manager who didn't take no for an answer. God love him for that, because he knew that Bob Roper was the A&R guy for Warner, and he wanted us to sign with Warner. So he was trying to track down Bob Roper, and someone said, well, he's actually out in Tofino on Vancouver Island having a vacation now, right? So John says, well, okay. So John grabbed our new video that we had just made, and he got on a plane and flew to
Wow.
Vancouver. Victoria drove to Tofino, knocked on his door.
That's
And
amazing.
he opened the door and he went, what the hell are you doing here? He said, you've got to watch this. I got to just show you this and then I'll leave, right?
What song was
You know,
it?
It was Outskirts. It was their
Oh,
first,
Outskirts,
first
cool.
single, yeah.
Yep.
And John kind of said, like, the fact that he did that was kind of, enough for him to sign
Impressive.
us, because he thought, if the manager is this excited about me, then something's going to happen.
Wow.
So it took a while longer because John didn't get us. He signed Honeymoon Suite, so he was only into, like, he worked for Supertramp for years, and then he signed Honeymoon Suite. He was into big hair, big rock. He didn't understand anything that was kind of lo-fi, and he said, I didn't get it. He said, but one thing I did know, I had this young girl working in my office, and she was going to see Blue Rodeo every week. And Friday night he'd say, where are you going tonight? She said, I'm going to Horseshoe for Blue Rodeo's going. And he said, oh, maybe I'll come one week just to see them. He said, oh, you don't know, you're missing them, right? So finally one weekend, he came down, but the lineup was so big he couldn't get in. So that was kind of worked in our favor too. And someone snuck him in the back door.
Wow.
And he came downstairs and he said, maybe we should talk a deal. We were like, really? Because he had rejected our demo tape when he had heard it. He was like, I don't get it. But he knew enough that times were changing. And he said, I knew that I didn't have my finger on the pulse of what people were listening to anymore. But I knew that Joanne Caden, my assistant, she did.
Right.
And she liked you, so I went with it.
And the big lineup doesn't hurt when he shows up and there's a pile of people waiting to see you guys.
Sold out. Yeah. And by that time, word of mouth, I got on the street. This was the fun place to be. If you're going out on a Friday night, you wanted to see a band, Blue
Right.
Rodeo's playing. Go.
This sounds like the beginning of the first album, maybe.
And we had, and then by that time he had, but we were still like, they wouldn't give us any money. They just said, you can go into the studio and record, and we will look after it, right? We'll take care of the bill, and we'll phone the studio. It was RCA in the Clear Place, which was over on Mutual Street, which is where the Guess Who recorded American Woman.
Cool.
So it was a good studio.
Sure.
And they said, you can go in there. We know them there. They know our credit's good. Start making a record, and we'll see how it goes. And we did. And then they started dropping by and everything. And we were just about to sign the deal. And then Handsome Ned died, right? And the day that we were supposed to go in and sign the deal and take pictures and everything was Handsome Ned's funeral. So we couldn't go. We kind of had to phone them and say, we can't do this today. And they go, yeah, I know. We're going to the funeral too. So, we'll see you down there. So it took actually quite a while. There was never an official signing. We just finally one day he just came, to one of our gigs and backstage, because we started to get so busy that he just came backstage and said, here, sign here. And we scribbled that. Okay, we've got a deal now, right? And
Record
record
deal.
was half made. Yeah.
Amazing.
And also Jim's son, Devin, was born during the making of that record. So it was so much commotion going on. Jim was working a day job. And so, we really didn't have time to kind of get together for a photo op and then kind of go, oh, here we are signing the deal. It didn't happen, right?
And Devin has opened up for you guys too, Blue Rodeo.
Yes,
So he's got a band too,
Yeah,
Devin.
he's got a band now.
Good for him.
Going strong.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's
35
great.
years.
So now you guys go and you make this first album, and what happens after that? You get airplay?
No, not right away.
Okay.
The first video is released, the one that John was so excited about, and Much Music played it a couple of times, right? But it didn't stick. But the second one, the next song was Try, that we were going to put out.
Of course.
They didn't want to start out with a ballad. They wanted to kind of lead off with something a little more jangly. Right?
Yep.
So that was out here. And then the second one was, okay, well, we got this kind of killer ballad here. Go with that. And the same people decided, we'll make this video. But they hired a new director at the company. And it's this guy from South Africa. And his name escapes me right now, but he was a real pro. They all talked about him like, whoa, this guy is really good. So he was going to do the second video for us. And Warner was actually going to pay him some money or whatever.
Yep.
So we shot the video for Try and sent it to Much Music. And John Martin, who was the program director of Much Music, he liked it. And he had been coming to see us at the Horseshoe a lot because Much Music was right across the road. So it was kind of, on one of his stops on the way home from work. He'd leave Much Music, he'd walk down the road to the Horseshoe and see that we were playing. He'd end up staying the night.
Cool.
So when that video came out, it went into high rotation. And then the song became a hit.
Amazing.
Straight across the country.
That's wonderful.
So by that, the next thing they were kind of going like, you're getting requests from Nova Scotia, from Calgary, British Columbia and stuff like that.
So did the venue start getting bigger after that?
Yeah, well, we started to fill all of them. Like we could play everywhere in Toronto. We filled it. Like,
Beautiful.
So then when the first album actually came out and started, it was 6 months before it got any attention.
Usually it
We
takes
went on
time.
tour and we played but some weird things would happen. Like we went on tour and we go to the Calgary. We played this Murphy's Pub in Calgary. There was 10 people there, right? And we thought, well, this is a waste of time. But one of them was the program director of Kiss FM in Calgary, and she went the next day and added our record, right?
Cool.
One of 10 people in the room.
Wow.
So you never know, right?
You never know.
Like,
Yep.
the right person. It could only be 10 people, but one of them is the right person. And then the next time we went to Calgary, we were playing bigger venues, and it was only 2 or 3 more trips before we were actually playing the concert halls. So it kind of once it explodes, once it starts rolling,
Snowballs.
it really goes.
That's
right?
amazing.
And but what it does is it takes you right out of your life. Whatever life you have, it's gone.
Wow.
You just say goodbye.
Because now you're touring
Yeah.
and
You're away all the time, and when you're not touring, you're doing interviews, you're recording a new thing, or you're doing a favor for someone.
always something.
It's a dirty business, right? Like people will
Yep.
do things like, we want you to play our barbecue, our radio station, and we're in Saskatchewan right now, right? So we'll pay for your flights out. You get that. We looked at your calendar. You got a day off. Yeah, it's their only day off. Well, you do want us to play your record, right?
Yeah, so kind of like a
So
blackmail
you
thing.
kind of got to do it, You kind of
Yeah.
go, it's okay. Well, we'll see you on Sunday,
Sure.
And then you go up and you do it. So you don't ever get time. I remember too. We would be touring Canada, and I remember being out for 6 months and thinking okay, at the end of March, I'm going home. Right? And of course the manager doesn't tell you anything at the time, but we're somewhere in the middle of March. We've got 2 weeks left. And the manager phones and says, I've got you a tour of the States opening for Louis Brickell. Only one problem is it starts 2 days after this one ends.
Wow.
And it's 16 weeks, right?
That's
You're
rough.
And then he phones back and says, for Jim and Greg, he goes, oh, and by the way, you got accepted to play on David Letterman. So that night that you had off, you're flying to New York. So you're not even, our last gig was Toronto at Massey Hall. And then they flew to New York, did Letterman. We met them in Birmingham, Alabama the next morning and started a tour that went for 16 weeks. And even that tour was supposed to be 16 weeks, but right near the end of it, they added 4 more weeks on it,
Jeez.
right? So they say, oh yeah, well, you know.
But not so bad playing on the Letterman show.
Yeah, well, I didn't,
What was that like?
I didn't get to do that.
Oh, okay.
Because this was the old Letterman. It was before that they used to just have the pieces of the band go on. Right?
Oh, I see.
It was Will Lee and Anton Fig would still back up, and Paul Caper would back up, you know, a couple of members of the band.
Sure.
So I actually got to go home, and I didn't complain about it.
No.
At the time, I was like, yeah, I wanted to see my kids, right? Because I hadn't seen them in a long time. So I actually got the 2 days off, and then I left again, and I didn't see them for like 3 months, or 4 months. I had a 3-day off in Chicago. There was a little break in Chicago for 3 days, and I thought, well, I could come home, but I ended up just staying in Chicago. You know,
Great.
just got sick of moving around. And not only that, I find if you're out for that length of time, coming home can be detrimental. If you come home for 3 days and then you got to go back out for a long stretch, you're better off
Staying out
just
there.
to stay out there.
Sure.
Yeah, you know, so that's what I ended up staying. There's a couple of years where I wasn't really home. Like my kids will tell me to this day, you know, they're growing up now, right? And they'll go like, yeah, you were gone a long time. You know, like we forgot about you, kind of. You know?
Yep.
Only when you phone, we go, oh, Dad's on the phone. Get up. How's it going? Where are you? They wouldn't even know where I was. Right? You know, oh, I'm in San Francisco. Oh, what's that like? You know, oh, I'm in England.
Wow.
Oh, great. You know?
The life of a rock star. Yeah, absolutely.
But it happens so fast, and so much happens that you get jaded, and you don't care anymore. Like I can really say, like I'd be in airports, and you know, I'd be bumping into famous people all the time, and I could care less.
Right.
You know, I'd be like, someone saying, hey, did you see this Donald Sutherland just walked by? I don't really.
I guess you just get used to it like everything else, and you'd rather be home sometimes.
You get tired, yeah. I mean, I remember being exhausted by the end of, you know, then I look back years later and kind of go, that was kind of cool.
Cool,
you
yeah.
know, like some of the things that happened, you know, like, because we were just finishing this one American tour, and we got a call, same thing. We were like, we're going home, and it's been a long time. We were playing like small clubs in the States, but we're going to go home. We're going home on Thursday, right? And our manager phoned us and said, yeah, when you get home on Thursday, instead of going home, you've got to go to the Diamond Club in Toronto because you're doing an audition for a movie. What? No, we don't want to do that. Said, yes, you do. You really do. The movie is with Meryl Streep and Mike Nichols is a director. You know, he did The Graduate. You know, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Cool.
Not to mention a million other movies. So, anyway, we do this audition, and we get the gig. Meryl Streep's there. We walk into the Diamond Club, and Meryl Streep's sitting at the back of the room. Hi, how are you?
Cool.
And she sings a song with us. They had sent us a tape of a song going. So in 3 days you're flying to LA to shoot these scenes for this movie. So then, you know, we thought we were going home, but we're going to LA for 3 weeks to work on this movie. Well, it was all great and everything. You know, we met so many people. It was like a whole different world that we got tossed into. We were on the lot and, you know, at CBS Studios, and all these people are coming in. Don Henley comes in to give Meryl Streep tickets to her show, you know. In fact, I have a very funny story. I don't know if I ever told you that story, where I almost ran over Don Henley on a bike.
No, you never told me.
Anyway, we were there for 3 weeks, and we shot this thing, and then you go away for a year, and our manager booked us into, you know, some crappy little gig in Louisville, Kentucky before we came home, and another one somewhere in Ohio. And then we got 2 weeks off finally, right? But when we were on the lot in LA, in Burbank, there was this hill, up the hill, we used to go to have a little puff, you know, and you know, there's all these bicycles hanging around. You could just grab them and go, right? So there was all these different sets up on the hill, like where they would do different shoots. And then right at the top, it looked like it was like a Little House on the Prairie or something. And then right over the hill, it was the LA freeway, right? So we'd go up there to smoke joints. And one day I took a bike and I thought we weren't doing anything. It looked like we're going to be in for a good wait, right? Because, you know, they were shooting something with Merrill doing a walk-on scene or something. So I go up there and I talk, and then I started to find all these things like, oh, look at, I didn't know this set was here. This looks like Leave It to Beaver House or whatever, right?
Cool.
And I'm wandering around and I kind of lose track of time because I'm a little stoned. And then I think, uh-oh, what if they're calling me now and I'm not there? What if they're going to do the scene? So I come racing down the hill on this little bike, right? And I take the turn and I smack right into this guy because I took it too sharp. And I almost knock him over. He goes banging into the wall and I go flying on this little bike. The bike goes one way and I go the other way. And I'm just laying on the ground and I reach, and the guy comes over to pick me up. And I look up and it's Don Henley.
Get out of
right?
town.
He picks me up and goes, "Are you okay?" You know? Yeah.
You almost
sorry,
killed
man.
Don Henley.
Sorry. You know? Yeah, well, that's why when I used to hear that Mojo Nixon song, "Don Henley Must Die," like I always thought, hey, hey Mojo, I almost.
And I bet you that's something he'll never forget either.
I wonder.
Hey?
Because we played a show with him, but I didn't get to talk to him. You know, but that I talked to him that day. Right?
Amazing.
I don't know if he'd ever remember. Remember, I'm the guy that whacked into you.
Almost
on the
killed you.
bike.
What a great story.
But he had been. So when I got back to the set, everyone goes, "Hey man, you missed it. Don Henley was just here." I saw him, believe me.
Yeah, I saw him up close and personal. That's an amazing
But he was
story,
nice
Baz.
about it. He really was nice about it, I gotta say. You know? And then of course I got there, and there was nothing going on, right? I was like, oh yeah, I did all that racing for
Yep.
nothing, because we waited around for, you know, when you do those kind of things, it's 21 days you're there, but you're shooting a 5-minute segment, right?
Crazy.
But it was just us playing this one song called "I'm Checking Out at Heartbreak Hotel," which is a Shel Silverstein song.
Yep.
One of my favorite writers ever, you know.
Of course.
I mean, he wrote cover of the Rolling
Yep.
Stone and, you know, Sylvia's Mother, you know, Stoned and I Missed It, which is a song that I sang many times. Not to mention, you know, Queen of the Silver Dollar for Only the Hills.
Sure. Well, Stoned and I Missed It. I know there's a video on YouTube of you singing that on stage.
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of cool. And I think that's with Blue Rodeo, too.
Yeah, they
That's
always.
cool.
I pulled that out on. I used to sing that on the back of, on the back of the bus. We would have like little sing songs.
Cool.
And I always knew the most songs. Right? Jim and Greg know their own songs, and they know other songs, but they don't know as many as I do.
Amazing.
And so we kind of always go, "Hey, sing this one, sing that one." And one day I pulled out "Stoned and I Missed It," and they were like, "You got to sing that one tonight on stage." And I was like, "No, I don't. No, people come to hear you guys sing the originals, you know." "Yeah, no, you got to sing that on stage." Well, of course, the first night I sang it, the place went crazy, right? You know, because it's a funny song, right? It's nothing to do. And I said to Greg, it's nothing to do with my singing. It's just that, you know, the people like the story, you know. And if you say I got stoned and I missed it, well,
Right.
you know,
Sure.
that's like, yeah, we can relate to that.
Sure.
So it kind of stuck. I ended up singing it for a long time.
Good for you.
It was kind of like a little novelty thing in the middle of the show.
Now, I went to see Blue Rodeo. I went to see you guys, my wife and I, a couple of years back in Oshawa, and one thing I noticed about you is you're so humble. Like, you play your bass, but you're always way kind of in the back. Is there a reason why you do that? Or?
Yes. Well, I used to be more out front, but as we added people in the band, for one thing, I ended up going a bit back. But then, Greg has really bad tinnitus, and the bass seems to really affect his hearing. Like he gets disoriented if it's too loud. So the bass and the drums get pushed into the corner, and you know, they put some plexiglass around Glenn so it wouldn't bleed so much.
Yep.
And they gave me this. They found this thing. We found this from the Rolling Stones, actually. Pierre, the guitar tech in the one of the guitar techs in the Rolling Stones, said that Daryl Jones had this thing called the thumper. It's a piece of wood with a vibrating piece of metal in the middle, and he stood on it, and it's amplified, so the note vibrates. When you play the note, it vibrates the wood at the frequency of the note.
How cool is that?
So I could play with a small amp behind my head, feel a note. So it sounds really big,
Wow.
but I could play quietly. Only I would be hearing it. Like, I hear myself really loud, and everyone else on stage hears me not really.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, and it helped the band continue, because at one point we thought we can't go on like this, because every night we would have a big argument about volume, right? And then to be like, the bass is loud, and I was turning down until I could barely hear myself.
Yeah, and that's frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we got this thing, and it solved the problem.
Amazing.
But it just seemed better for Greg if we were at the rhythm section was at the back in the corner, that he could function way more out front. He could do his thing. So we said, okay, so that's what we did.
Amazing. The
And
guitar. Sorry, go ahead.
Glenn started playing with brushes as well.
The guitar. It looks like you played it a bit. It's kind of worn out there. You want to talk about where you got it? Or do you remember? Or
Yeah,
how long
I've
you've
had
had
this
it?
guitar for a long time. I bought it in, well, somebody bought it for me. It was right when I joined Blue Rodeo. I didn't have a guitar at the time. I had a bass, but I didn't own a guitar. I had sold it for the guitar I did own. I sold it to somebody because it needed money. I had kids and that. So anyway, I went to a party one night with my then girlfriend, which was Pat, and this guitar was sitting there, and I started playing it. And she didn't even know I played guitar. And she was actually taking guitar lessons at the time. She watched me play and she went, "Do you own a guitar?" I said, "No." She said, "Are you kidding me? You can play like that and you don't own a guitar?" "Oh, what's so strange about that?" Anyway, so about a week later, she came walking into the house with this guitar.
That's
Because
amazing.
apparently the guy was selling it, right? And he was a friend of mine who was a sax player. And he was kind of like, yeah, I wanted to go to someone who can play well, and so that was 1985. I got this.
That's amazing. Okay, let's hear another song before we say goodbye to the folks.
Well, I was going to play an instrumental.
Sure.
This is one I wrote.
You wrote this. Very nice, buddy. Very nice. Guys, I want to thank you very much for sitting down with me. You have done 2 of my radio shows on this House of Musicians radio show on Reality Radio 101, and I appreciate that. One, I was in a bit of a bind, and I called you a couple days before. You said, sure, I'd love to do it. So I want to thank you very much, man, for sitting down with me. It's great to see you again. I'm going to stay in touch. And to all the folks out there, thank you for tuning in.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in, and you're watching this House of Musicians radio show live interviews with Mr. Bazil Donovan. Thank you for tuning in. Love you, Baz.